Ah, what's that smell? Oh my, is your mouth watering? Did your stomach just growl? Of course, it's the smell of fresh baked bread, and since you're probably hungry, your stomach may have growled at you. So, how does this relate to what you're studying this week? According to the chapter on learning, a growling stomach probably means a naturally occurring response took place. When we are very hungry and smell food that we enjoy, a reflex known as an unconditioned response occurs. Why is it called unconditioned? Because it's a naturally occurring reflex. Remember, in psychology, a naturally occurring reflex is not considered learning. Typically, psychologists define learning as a relatively permanent change in behavior, knowledge, or capability that is acquired through experience and cannot be attributed to illness, injury, or maturation. Ergo, your stomach did not learn how to growl. It's able to do so naturally. As you continue to study the phases of classical conditioning, you'll understand why this is an important distinction. Before any conditioning occurs, the unconditioned stimulus causes an unconditioned response. When the fresh baked bread gives off its aroma, the delicious smell is the unconditioned stimulus. Feeling hunger as a result of the smell is the unconditioned response. Remember, an unconditioned response is an unlearned behavior. It always occurs naturally in response to an unconditioned stimulus. Before discussing phase 2, let's define the neutral stimulus. The smell of the baked bread makes your stomach respond with hunger sounds. But what's the apron got to do with classical conditioning? Does catching sight of the apron produce a hunger reflex? Likely your answer is no. So for now, let's call the apron the neutral stimulus. A neutral stimulus may focus attention, but it does not produce a specific response. Now that the meaning of neutral stimulus is understood, we can move to phase 2 and learn how classical conditioning may change your view of aprons. Perhaps you begin to notice that a fresh loaf of bread appears every time anyone in your house puts on an apron. This is the phase where the learning begins. By repeatedly pairing the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus, the bread and the apron become associated. Do you see how the neutral stimulus is no longer neutral? The apron has become a conditioned stimulus. So what happens once an association has been made between the bread and the apron? Seeing an apron makes you think of food, and yes, a hunger response occurs. Even though there's no food in sight, the apron, which is now a conditioned stimulus, evokes a conditioned response. The smell of the baked bread is no longer a required condition. The apron is now associated with food, and the very sight of it can cause hunger pains. Hunger has become a conditioned response. By now it should be clear, classical conditioning in humans is entirely similar to what Pavlov observed with his dogs when he was conducting research on the physiology of digestion. Now let's practice. Take a look at the following 3 pictures. You may need to pause the video as you identify the unconditioned stimulus, the unconditioned response, the neutral stimulus, the conditioned stimulus, and the conditioned response. Also use the language of classical conditioning to summarize what happened. Here's a clue. Classical conditioning basically involves forming an association between 2 stimuli resulting in a learned response. It's a process that has distinct phases. Okay, before you head off to this topic's discussion forum, complete one more practice. Identify the pictured UCS, UCR, CS, and CR. Also think about why music plays such an important role in advertising various products. If classical conditioning is occurring, what are you learning? Do you think advertisers are encouraging associations between the way certain music makes you feel and their products? Okay, that's it for this video. Remember to check the relevant due dates in the syllabus.